Hi, and welcome back to part 2 of the midterm review. So on problem number 26, we're trying to figure out which number is greater, less than, or equal to. So just remember, this is your greater than symbol. And then we have less than, which kind of looks like an L. So L for less than is an easy way to remember it. And then you have the equals symbol. And then don't forget, this is greater than or equal to. And then we have less than or equal to. So here we have negative 0.3452 and negative 0.3425. So remember in the number line, we've got 0 in the middle, and then on the left we've got -1, -2, and so on. So if you think of numbers moving further away from 0 on the number line to the left, they get smaller. As you move to the right, the numbers obviously are growing, or they get larger. So if you take away the decimal point for a second from each of those numbers and just think of negative 3452 and negative 3425, which one would be smaller than the other one? So the further I go down away from 0 on the left, the smaller I get. And if you look at the last two digits, 52 is a lot further away than 25. So negative 3452 would be smaller or less than negative 3425. So now if I take those decimal points and put them back again, that's still true. That still makes sense. For number 27, we have to write the ratio. Remember, again, a ratio is just a fraction in fractional notation and in lowest terms. So remember, ratios, you're comparing two things. You can compare several ways. You could put, let's say we had 1 to 2. That's a ratio. You can use a colon to separate them. So it could be like 1 boy to 2 girls, or 1 teacher to 2 students. And then you've got 1, and you can put the word 2 in between them. Or you can write it in fractional notation, which would just be a fraction. Okay, so 1/2 could also be known as 1 to 2. So here we're trying to compare 3 nickels to $5. So we need to make sure that our labels are the same. And what we want to do is convert one of them. So it would be easier to convert dollars to nickels. And what you need to remember is how many nickels make a dollar. And that would be 20 nickels, right? Because 20 times 5 cents, a nickel is 5 cents. 20 times 5 is 100, or a dollar here. So I'm going to write down 20 nickels equals $1. Okay, so we want to change $5 to nickels. So dollars is larger than nickels. Anytime you go from a larger to a smaller, you multiply. So I'm just going to multiply 5 times 20, which gives me 100. So $5 is 100 nickels. Okay, and we want to compare nickels to dollars. So that means nickels goes up top. So you have 3 nickels. And now dollars goes on the bottom, which we know now is 100 nickels. So the fraction would just be 3 over 100, which you can't reduce. Neither one has a greatest common factor. For the food described, find the percent of total calories from fat. So this is very similar to the budget problem, the earlier problem in video 1, where there was a person who earned $3,000 a month and they budgeted so much towards food. So here we're trying to figure out what percent of total calories are fat. So we've got 18, in other words, 18 grams of fat out of, or 18 calories of fat out of 60 calories. is what percentage. So you're just dividing 18 divided by 60, or you can cross multiply. Either way, you get the same answer. So if I cross multiply, I would get 60x equals 18 times 100, which is 1800, and then I'm dividing by 60. So you get 30. So 30% of the total calories are from fat. Now, if you end up dividing 18 by 60 instead, so if you choose this method, just make sure that you take your answer, which is a decimal, and you move it 2 places to the right. So you would get 0.3, but moving the decimal 2 places to the right would give you 30%. Number 29, we have a discount problem. So discount, sales tax, they're basically, you work them out the same way, except sales tax, you always add on to the original price, whereas discount, you take it away, right? Discount, you're saving money. So the formula for discount is amount of discount equals the discount rate, which would be your percentage as a decimal, times the original price. So here we are looking for the amount of discount and then the sale price. Okay, so let's find how much of a discount. So say you're buying something for $439.50, but there's a sign that says 40% discount. So how much money can you take off of that? So to find the amount of discount, we're just going to take our discount rate as a decimal. So remember, 40% would be 0.4 because you're moving the decimal point back 2 places to the left, and then times the original price, which would be $439.50. And when you multiply them, you get $175.80. So that's the amount of discount. So now if I want to find the sale price, like how much are you actually going to be paying for that, it's the original price minus the amount of discount. So here the original price was $439.50, and you're going to subtract $175.80. And when you do that, you get $263.70. So that's how much money you would be paying. Number 30 was very similar to a problem that we did in video 1, so I'm going to leave that for you all to do on your own. 31 is an order of operations problem. So remember, you've got PEMDAS, which is parentheses, exponents, and then you multiply or divide whatever order they occur, and then add or subtract in whatever order they occur. But always make sure that you take care of multiplication and division before you add or subtract. So if I look at this expression, I see powers there, so I need to make sure I take care of exponents, and I also see parentheses. Okay, so I'm going to work out the powers here. 4 squared, remember, just means 4 times 4, which is 16. And then I have times 5 minus 3, got to take care of the parentheses, which is 2, plus 2 to the third is 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8, plus 9 squared, 9 times 9, 81. Okay, now looking at order of operations, I have multiplication, addition, and addition. I need to make sure I multiply before I add or subtract. So I have to multiply 16 times 2, which is 32. Now you have addition straight across. Just go left or right in the order it occurs. So 32 plus 8 gives you 40, and then 40 plus 81 gives you 121. By the way, where we have problems that say the expression is undefined, remember that undefined means when you have a fraction that has a denominator of 0. So for example, 5 divided by 0 is undefined. So if you have an expression that has a fraction and you end up with 0 in the denominator, you can't simplify that expression anymore. It would just be undefined. In number 32, we're subtracting two polynomials. So remember that when you subtract, and I know I'm subtracting because there's a minus between each of these expressions, you're going to change the minus to a plus and change the signs inside for all the numbers. So now what I have is 4x squared plus 9x squared. So 4 plus 9 gives me 13, and then it's x squared. And then I have a 7 minus a 7. So those just go away. So the only thing that's left there is 13x squared. In number 33, they tell us that the top 3 movies that made the most money through movie ticket sales are movie A, $767.4 million, movie B, $668.5 million, and movie C, $688.8 million. What was the total amount of ticket sales for these 3 movies? So remember, total amount means you're going to add. So all you're going to do is add up those 3 numbers, and they are in millions already. So I'm going to add these up. So we would have 767.4 plus 668.5 plus 688.8. And we get 2,124.7 million. Okay, and it says round to the nearest million. So that means that I'm going to make this 4 go to a 5 because of the 7, right? So 4 or more, it's 5 or more, let it soar. 4 or less, let it rest. So I went around to the nearest million. I'm going to look at the number to the right. If it's 4 or less, I let it rest. If it's 5 or more, which this is, it's 7, I let it soar. So the 4 goes up to a 5. So this would be 2,125 million. In number 34, we need to solve that inequality. Inequalities are solved just like equations. The only difference is there's an inequality symbol. So in this case here, there's a less than or equal to. So just pretend that right here there was an equal sign. And to solve, I would need to make sure I distribute over on the right side. So I would get negative 6x plus 5 is less than or equal to negative 5x plus 5. Negative 5 times x, negative 5 times negative 1. And then I would want to get x by itself. So I'm going to add 5x to both sides. And negative 6x plus 5x leaves me with negative 1x plus 5, which is less than or equal to 5. To get the x by itself, I need to subtract 5. So I would get negative x is less than or equal to 0. Okay, now x is not solved, so there's a negative there. What I need to do is either multiply both sides by a negative 1 or divide by a negative 1. However, when you do that, I'm going to put a red flag right here. Anytime you divide both sides of an inequality by a negative 1, this sign flips around. So now it's going to be x is greater than or equal to 0. Okay, by the way, so this is called set builder notation. This vertical bar you just read as the word such that. So you would say x such that, and then the answer would be x is greater than or equal to 0. In interval notation, if you think about like a number line, here's 0, and remember that it's greater than or equal to, we would use brackets. Greater than or equal to 0 would go to the right. So that's what it would look like on the number line. If you were writing it in interval notation, then it would be bracket 0 all the way to infinity. Number 35, we have a bar graph, and it shows the heights of lakes. So here we have at sea level 0 feet, and then we've got the positives are the number of feet above sea level, and then we have the number of feet below sea level for the different lakes. We want to find the difference in elevation of Lake B and E. So that means difference means we want to subtract. So B minus E. So here B is to 111 feet above sea level, minus E, which is negative 58. And remember, when you subtract, you change the sign. So really it's 211 plus 58, which is 269 feet. For number 36, again, we have a ratio, and we're writing it in lowest terms. So here we have minutes and hours. We want to, again, convert. So remember, there's 60 minutes in 1 hour. So it's easier to convert 3 hours to minutes. Okay, we're going from hours is larger than minutes. Anytime you go larger to smaller, you multiply. So 3 times 60 gives me 180 minutes. That's how many minutes are in 3 hours. So now to write this as a ratio, we've got 50 minutes over 180 minutes. And if I reduce this, 10 goes into 50 5 times, and 10 goes into 180 18 times. So the fraction in lowest terms would be 5/18. You can also use that trick I showed you where you cancel a 0 for a 0. So 5/18 is in simplified form. 37 is very similar to the other problem that we looked at, where it gave you the length of, I think it was a board. Nope, it was a piece of steel, and it was cut into 3 inches. It was number 18 in the study guide. So it's very similar to this one. I will let you try this one on your own, number 37. Okay, 38 is just like the other problem that we did. So you can also do that one on your own. 39 is writing an expression again. We did one very similar earlier, so you can try that. Number 40, there are 110 calories per 28.4 grams of cereal X. Find how many calories are in 36.92 grams of the cereal. So here we can set up a proportion. We've got calories. We're comparing calories to grams. So we've got 110 calories per 28.4 grams. So we want to know how many calories. So calories is on top, that's my X, are in 36.92 grams. Grams are in the bottom. Okay, and what we have here is a proportion, so we're going to cross multiply and divide. So I have 28.4x equals 110 times 36.92. And now you have 28.4x equals, if you multiply 110 times 36.92, you get 4061.2. And then to get x by itself, I'm just going to divide by 28.4. And 4061.2 divided by 28.4 gives us 143. So that's how many calories are in 36.92 grams of that cereal. In number 41, we're simplifying the expression by combining like terms. Remember, like terms have to have two things. They have to have the same variable, and they have to have the same exponent. So here I've got 4s squared and 2s squared. I can combine them. 4 plus 2 is 6s squared. And then I also have 4 minus 9. They're both constants. They're numbers. I can combine them. 4 minus 9 is negative 5. So your answer would be 6s squared minus 5. In number 42, I have a binomial times a binomial, right? 2 terms times 2 terms. So we can use FOIL. So I'm going to do first times first. A times A gives me A squared. Outer times outer. A times negative 3 is negative 3A. Inner times inner. 6 times A is 6A. Last times last. 6 times negative 3 is negative 18. So then I have A squared, and I can combine the 2 terms in the middle. Negative 3A plus 6A gives me 3A minus 18. In number 43, I'm solving. So if you notice, I have a proportion. I've got a ratio equal to another ratio. I can just put the 2x minus 3 over 1. So now you have a fraction equal to another fraction, which is a proportion. To solve a proportion, remember we cross multiply. So 1 times 3 times x plus 1 is just 3 times x plus 1. And then on the other side, I have 4 times the quantity, 2x minus 3. You have an expression you're multiplying by 4, so you want to make sure you put this in parentheses. And then we distribute. And then, like always, I need to get x by itself. So I'm going to subtract 3x and move it with the 8x. 8x minus 3x gives us 5x, and then I'm going to bring down the negative 12. Okay, now I need to move that negative 12 over with the 3. So to do that, I'm going to add it, because it's the opposite of subtracting. 3 plus 12 gives us 15 equals 5x. And then I'm going to divide by 5. 15 divided by 5 is 3. So my final answer is x equals 3. Your other two choices we've talked about undefined, but the solution is all real numbers. That would be if everything canceled out, and let's say your answer said 3 equals 3, okay, or x equals x. Then the answer would be all real numbers. If you had something that was a false statement, like 3 equals 2, or x equals y, okay, then there's no solution there. Number 44 is very similar to the problem we solved before. So again, you're looking for amount of discount and sale price, and you will be given the formulas for those. You just need to know how to work that out. 45, you're rounding to the nearest dollar. So here you have the dollars, and then anything to the right would be the cents. So if I'm rounding to the nearest dollar, it means that I'm going to stop right here, but I'm going to look at the 9. The 9's going to tell me what to do with the 5. Remember, if it's 4 or less, you let it rest. You would just leave that 35. If it's 5 or more, you let it soar. So that 9 is bigger than 5. So that means I'm going to round the 35 to a 36. So $35.95 is basically to the nearest dollar, it's $36. For number 46, you have a square. You're trying to find the area and the perimeter. So what's special about a square, remember, is all the sides are the same. You could, if you want to, do length times width, or you could just do side squared, s squared. So 40 squared, 40 times 40, gives us 1600. Remember, area is always square. So the area would be 1600 square miles. Okay, again, you could also do length times width. Just remember every side is 40, so just 40 times 40. And then to get the perimeter, since all the sides are the same, it's 4 times s, or 4 times the length of one side. So here, 4 times 40 is 160. And remember, the perimeter is always linear units. It's just plain old miles in this case. So you could also just remember to add each side, right? Because in a square, all the sides are equal. So you would literally just do 40 plus 40 plus 40 plus 40. If you want to do it the long way, that's fine. In number 47, you are writing 1000% as a decimal. So remember to change a percent to a decimal. Just drop the percent, find the decimal, and then just move it back 2 places to the left. So here you would just be left with 10.00, which is just 10. For number 48, we have an architect designs a rectangular flower garden such that the width is exactly 2/3 of the length. If 300 feet of antique picket fencing are to be used to enclose the garden, find the dimensions of the garden. So first of all, we have length and width. And it tells us that the width is exactly 2/3 of the length. Well, we don't know what the length is, so that's going to be our unknown, our x. And then how would we express the width as 2/3 the length? It's just 2/3 times x. They tell us that we're going to take 300 feet of fencing to enclose the garden. So we're dealing with perimeter. And the perimeter of a rectangle is, if you'll remember from video 1, it's 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. So now I'm just going to replace, remember length is L, width is W. I'm going to replace my numbers in my formula. So perimeter is 300, and then I have 2 times the length, which is just x, and 2 times the width, which is 2/3 x. So what I have here is 300 equals 2x plus, to multiply 2 times 2/3, you would just do 2 times 2, which is 4 over 3x. And now I've got 2x plus 4/3 x. So 2 plus 4/3 is just 2 4/3. And to change that to an improper fraction, I'm going to do 3 times 2, which is 6, plus 4, which is 10. So that's actually 10/3. So you have 300 equals 10/3 x. And then a trick you can use, since it's 10/3 times x, you can multiply by both sides by the reciprocal, 3/10. And here, the 10s and the 3s will cancel because 10 times 3 is 30. So 10 times 3 is 30, and 3 times 10 is 30. 30 over 30 is 1x. And then here you would just do 3 times 300, which is 900, divided by 10, which is just 90. So we need to find the dimensions. That means we need the length and the width. Well, we just found x. X is 90. X was your length. So it's going to be 90, in this case, feet. And then to get the width, I'm just going to replace 90 for x. So 2 times 90 gives me 180. And then divide by 3. 180 divided by 3 is 60. And again, it's a dimension, it's feet. For number 49, translate this question to a proportion and do not solve. So we're using A if the unknown is the amount, B if the unknown is the base, and P if the unknown is the perimeter, is the percent. So here, if you'll remember, you have is over of equals percent over 100. So we have 3% of 71 is what number? Okay, so they gave me 3%, that's going to go right above 100. And then it says of 71, so 71 is going to go in the base. Is what number? So you would have A over 71 equals 3 over 100. In number 50, you're solving the equation. So we're going to have to distribute the 9 into the parentheses first. We would get 9 times 8c, which is 72c. 9 times -1 is -9. And then you have minus 4 equals 70c plus 9. So here we can combine our two like terms. -9 minus 4 is -13. And then I need to solve for c. So I'm going to subtract 70c from both sides. 72c minus 70c is 2c. Bring down the negative 13, bring down the 9. And then I'm going to add 13 to both sides. So you would get 2c equals 9 plus 13, which is 22. And I'm going to divide both sides by 2. 22 divided by 2 is 11. Number 51 is a simple interest problem. And to find interest, it's just the principal, which is the amount of money that you put in or invest, times the rate, which is your percent, times the time. So we abbreviate it and just say I equals P times R times T. And as always, you got to change your rate or your percentage to a decimal. So here you're finding the simple interest. You have your principal, your rate, and your time. And all you do is multiply them together, but just make sure you change the rate to a percent. So here I would have 160 times, if I want to take 6.5% and change it to a decimal, I'm going to move the decimal back 2 places to the left. So it would be 0.065 and then times 4. And when you multiply those three numbers together, you get $41.60. So if you were to place $160 in the bank and the interest rate was 6.5%, and you left that in there for 4 years, you would basically be making $41.60. For number 52, you're using the product rule to simplify the expression, write the results using exponents. So we're multiplying straight across here. You basically have 4 times negative 3 times 1. So 4 times negative 3 times 1 is just negative 12. And then we have all like bases. So all you're going to do is add the exponents. Anytime you multiply like bases, add the exponents. So if I add 12 plus 7 plus 2, 12 plus 7 is 19, plus 2 is 21. So it would be negative 12z to the 21st power. For number 53, we're finding the area of the triangle. So the area of the triangle is 1/2 the base times the height. So your base and height will always make a 90-degree angle with each other. So here's your height, here's your base, and you just multiply through. So you'll have 1/2 times 3 times 2.8. You remember 1/2 you can change to a decimal. It would be 0.5. So if you want, you could multiply 0.5 times 3 times 2.8. And you get 4.2 and its area, so it's inches squared. In number 54, it says a company borrows $63,000 for 2 years at a simple interest rate of 10.5%. Find the interest paid on the loan and the total amount paid. So again, you're going to use your interest formula. Interest equals principal times rate times time. And here, your principal is the amount you borrowed, so $63,000. The rate is 10.5%, so remember we need to change that to a decimal. So just move the decimal back 2 places to the left. And then times the time, which is 2. So if you multiply through those 3 numbers together, you'll end up with $13,230. So that's the interest you paid on the loan. So that means that if you borrowed this amount from the company, $63,000, if they're going to lend you money, they need to make some money. So they're making $13,230 off of you. That's the amount you need to pay back, plus what you borrowed. So the interest paid is $13,230, but the total amount paid would be what you borrowed plus the interest. So $63,000 plus $13,230. And when you add those together, you end up with $76,230. And then I'm going to leave number 55 for you all to work out because it's very similar to the other perimeter problems that we did. All right, I hope the video was helpful. If any of you have any questions, please let me know. And good luck on your midterm.